Today, we've got a guest who knows the highways, the airways, and a lot about the stories that make America tick. You hear him every day on Road Gang Radio from Radio Nemo, where he blends trucking news, culture, humor, and storytelling into one of the most entertaining shows on the dial. He's a New Orleans native, a traveler who's been to every state. Yes, every state. He was at 49 until the magical Rhode Island was on his map and he went into it
Ah,
and he's now at 50. He is a teacher, performer, and one of the most curious minds that you'll ever meet. He brings big energy, big heart, and big opinions. And whenever he's talking music, movies, or the madness of life on the road, he always brings that signature spark. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the gentleman that also interviewed us on Road Gang Radio, and that is Jimmy Mack. So, Jimmy Mack, we are thrilled to have you. Please welcome to the Baseball and Barbecue Podcast.
I think it's a match made in heaven, to be honest with you. Now it's either heaven or Iowa, which of course I'm sure people have made that joke before here as well. But it is really good to be here. My wife, who does all the bookings, who is an amazing sound designer and a terrific programmer, basically, said, Jim, I've got these guys that have created this podcast called Baseball and Barbecue. And I said, it's really funny because it was one of the things I was actually thinking of sending to you to possibly book. And I thought about the men and women who live on the road with us and how many of them, love our baseball report, love talking baseball. It really heats up in the summertime on our chat. And I mean, we've done when we used to do a weekend show for a better part of 8 years, we actually would have we had a cold weather grilling and a warm weather grilling show, and we called it the Thrill of the Grill.
ah, that's a
Summer
great name.
edition and winter edition, as opposed to Will Clark, who went to high school in the same place that I did, the
The
thrill
big thrill.
himself, and now he's gone. So yeah, there you go. There you go. And it's great to be here, guys. It's good to see you in person. And
Yeah,
I'm just I've been looking forward to this for a while. So
Well, we're
thanks.
glad.
yeah.
We loved being on your show. It was fantastic. We didn't know what to expect. I think at the end we told you though, if you guys ever have you have some air that you want to fill, you could certainly run our show. You are welcome to run it anytime on
Well, by the
your
way, you're
radio.
saying that now, but I got to tell you, I have a guy over in programming by the name of Nick DeMeo, the guy who's our general manager. Which, by the way, I love that term. I said we can't call you, we can't call you the president. I said we got to call you a general manager
The
because
GM.
so much of what we do is really about moving pieces and and getting people across the board. By the way, I got to tell you, we've got some big plans coming up. Anthony Nally, who does the RVers, that wonderful show about RV culture, is actually going to be joining us in the next year. We're in the middle of talks about that. So, by the way, really quickly, there's a lot of our friends out there on the highways and byways who wouldn't mind a really great podcast about baseball and barbecue. Because man, the folks out there's guys in our show who actually have done cooking on the top of their hoods. The
Wow.
truckers we talk to have done, and often will call with those kind of hack solutions. And I have been given beef brisket as a gift at truck shows. And it's been like, we cook this on the hood. And it's like, okay, okay, fine, man. And it's like, and given how some of these guys take care of their trucks and how, the chrome shines, I'm like, it's probably better than some flat tops in New Orleans. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
It's
Low and
great.
slow.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. I literally, it's like, hey, I got you some. It's a guy named Lost Yankee walked over to our former platforms booth at the Middle American Truck Show, and he literally had a pan. A pan full of beef brisket. The other really great one was somebody actually made me a cobbler from a grill and brought a pan of cobbler to one of the shows, peach cobbler, and they made it all on a grill top.
And it was
And
Nice.
delicious, right? It was
Nice.
delicious.
Yes, yes. Jimmy, I want to talk to you about trucking culture in a minute. I just want to get a little more background about you. I mean, I did some research. You were a journalist, you were in law enforcement, entertainment, a teacher, a contractor. What a life. I mean, what did you do? How'd you get into all that stuff?
Okay, so this is really kind of interesting and fun. I am basically a progeny of people who actually worked on railroads and worked in politics, which is and in law enforcement and in fire departments. I could have just skipped all of that and said I'm Irish. and that would have I really could have. I mean, I'm telling you, my Uncle Willie McCrossin. He's actually my cousin, but he's long gone now. But always called him Uncle Willie. He's a cousin of ours. He was the fire chief forever and a day. He is the one who made the decision in the city of New Orleans that he would that parades that were being pulled by tractor trailers could not go through the French Quarter anymore. It was his fire department that stopped the burning down of the Cabildo and the Presbytere. I had an uncle, great uncle, just passed away a couple of years ago, lived to 99 years of age. And he was lieutenant governor from 1970 to 78. He lost a mayor's election in 65 by 300 votes. Well, actually, what he would tell you was he lost by 151 votes because the last 500 voters have no idea what they're going to do until they walk into the booth. He said, so if you lose by 300, he says, if 151 people change their mind, you win by one. So he said, I lost by 151 votes. He then loses to his best friend. He comes back 4 years later in an attempt to run again in the late 60s, loses to his best friend in the runoff. And then rather than showing bitter, being sour grapes, endorses that friend of his to become Moon Landrieu, who is the father of Mary and Mitch Landrieu, the former Housing and Urban Development Secretary and the former senator from Louisiana. He then gets elected to lieutenant governor, where he serves 8 incredibly successful years, and then runs for governor. The biggest drawback is that he's from New Orleans, and it's very hard to win governor if you're in fact from New Orleans, but he runs. He loses, he misses a runoff that he's guaranteed to win on the 4th recount.
Wow.
And he is such a kind of a sprawling figure that there was a parade of Louisiana what ifs. And it literally, one of the floats was, he was the float, and it says Fitz wins. And, and it's just, there's a lot of, so I was raised by people like that. I mean, I was raised, the idea that you woke up early in the morning as a kid and got thrown into the back of a big Bronco truck, at which point you would go to the neutral grounds, which you guys call medians, because our medians are much bigger because they filled in canals. And we'd pull signs up as kids. And for a box of donuts, we'd pull all the opponent's signs up and throw them away. And so I grew up in kind of a storytelling atmosphere. I mean, my mom is a teacher, my father's an attorney, and I am answering your question. As you guys know, left field is the place I like to live.
That's all right, but you'll get to the plate.
And what happened is that I've become interested in kind of going places, both travel wise and career wise. But I began to kind of figure out pretty early on, oh wow, I'm actually telling stories. I'm actually looking to meet people and tell stories. And I didn't have I didn't walk around wearing blue with a badge and a pistol. I mean, it was investigative work. It was state work, but it was really about getting to know people and actually help them find solutions. I did have the power of enforcement, but every single thing I did was kind of designed to meet people and kind of tell their stories and to get more stories and to kind of accumulate stories. And in doing that, like one of the places I taught was an urban middle school, where I was, along with being a special ed English teacher, I was also the vice principal of discipline. In a cultural reset for a middle school, not too far from where the studio I'm talking to you from now is. And I've written plays, a lot of plays. One of them was done at the World War II Museum in New Orleans about Andrew Higgins. I kept my name off of it, but nobody's name is on it. It's just called The Landing Party in honor of Higgins. And I've just done a lot of stuff. I mean, like I said, it looks like I've done everything and been everywhere and don't know what I want to do with myself. But if you go back and you look at it, even the places where I wasn't being paid to tell stories, I was collecting them. And I had an opportunity. I met a beautiful woman late in my life, not late in my life, but late for when people are supposed to get married. And it turned out that I actually already knew her dad. He was Dave Nemo, one of the founding originators of trucking radio and the Road Gang, which was founded here in New Orleans, blocks away from where we are right now. That's a great story unto itself. The idea of genius doesn't come up a lot, and I always think that genius is John Small. Okay, so the World Series. Okay, I have to tell you that was, by the way, the best World Series since Minnesota and the Braves. Since the Minnesota Atlanta Twins Braves
1991. Yes.
We'll see you tomorrow night. In the middle of that, what I love about baseball so much, and my wife, who doesn't like any sports, has become a baseball fan, not because of me. I mean, Claire always knew that I loved baseball, but when we got a chance to go together and she realized that we could talk and have a good time and catch up and see a lot of folks and hang out with a lot of people and then get excited about what was happening all of a sudden. I remember the first baseball game that we ever went to together, right around the sixth inning. It was a AAA baseball team, the New Orleans Zephyrs. And I remember right around the sixth inning, this is just the best thing. She turned to me and she went, "When did this get so exciting? We were just having some hot dogs and having a great conversation. And suddenly we can win this thing." I'm like, "I know, it's the best. It's baseball." So we met each other first as friends who joined a gym together to motivate each other, and then started taking classes together, spin classes and all of that stuff, and getting in fun runs and playing softball and all that stuff. And then I realized that her dad was a man who kept a number of people I love awake at night, driving down the road, getting them home safely. And by the strangest of things, somebody actually quit one day on the air, just walked off and quit. And
On the air.
on the air. And Dave knew that I had a background in and I had done some NPR stuff. I had done a lot of writing for newspapers. I'd worked for the New Orleans Times-Picayune and the New Orleans Advocate. I'd worked as a stringer for a number of the news services. He knew that I could tell stories. I'd actually done a couple of one-person shows. He said, I just need somebody to fill in. I mean, or I'm going to be working 7 days a week again for the first time in forever. And I said, I'd fill in. And I started doing it, and I had a really good time. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And Dave had the best radio advice ever. He said, "Don't lie to them. Don't act like you know anything about trucking that you don't." He said, "You know law enforcement, you know railroads, which means you know intermodal stuff, and you can learn rules and regs." He said, "Ask them questions, introduce yourself, get to know them." And that was almost a decade ago. And so this is, I think, oh my God, this is the longest job I've ever had. Thanks for reminding me of that, Jeff.
Anytime.
Um, the only thing I can tell people that it did change after many years on Sirius XM, we made the move to multiple platforms. We made the move to be able to control our own revenue. We made the move because there was a lot of stuff that we wanted to do that we weren't able to do on the old platform. And we've, kind of stepped into the 21st century, or as Dave likes to say, we are now and forever. Which is
Nice.
really kind of cool. So, that, and by the way, in the midst of all of that, I love baseball. And you can get me. Oh, by the way, I've worked as a flat top chef too, so I had a lot of experience. Learned from a lot of old African American cooks in New Orleans how to work a flat top, which is where I get my love of barbecue from. I mean, I love barbecue as a kid, but where I get my love of actually being able to cook on a grill comes from my time spent at Margaritaville as the flat top chef.
Nice.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about both of those, but we'll jump into baseball first. I know that you mentioned you've got some great baseball stories, and you are definitely, Jimmy, you are a storyteller. It is, a storyteller has, when they open their mouth right away, right? They're able to bring you in, and when they want to let you go, that's when they let you go. Their words manipulate and evoke feelings, and I could tell you are definitely that kind of person. So I'm very anxious to hear some of your baseball stories. I know Jeff's going to love them as well. So please, the podcast stage is yours.
Okay, so this is really funny. Actually, before I get to like real baseball stories, like the fact that my grandfather's best friend was Connie Ryan, who was I think 13-year major leaguer, but also the first manager of the Colt 45s before they became the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a great story. Remind me to tell you, we talked a little bit about it today, that in order to escape the bookies, who didn't want to break their legs but wondered where their money was, they went to New York for a weekend as big shots and bet on 6 games of the 7-game World Series between the Dodgers and the Yankees. And the game they missed was was the perfect game. They missed the perfect game. It was the only game, but they won enough money to be able to pay the bookies off and have a really nice summer a really nice fall and Christmas for the rest of the year. In typical New Orleans fashion, my clearest memory of really being deeply in love with baseball was the year that my little league team went to the championship. And this is, remember the Bad News Bears, Chico's
Sure.
Bail Bonds, the best sponsor of all time?
Oh, yes.
This is classic New Orleans. The team that the team that beat us in the championship game was called Parasol's Restaurant. And Parasol's Restaurant is one of the most famous drinking holes in the Irish Channel. It is only a restaurant in the sense that they give you pool boys. It is literally a festival of St. Patrick's drunkenness on St. Patrick's Day. And we actually were sponsored by a restaurant called Back to the Garden, which was the only vegan restaurant in the city of New Orleans in the late 70s, which is like peak weirdness. But I remember that year really well because it's the first time you realize, man, I really love baseball. I really not just I don't just like swinging a bat and hanging out with my friends, but like the idea of hitting a cutoff man got to be really interesting to me. The thing is, you're 11 years old, and it really dawns on you. You know that moment of epiphany you have when you like a sport, but you don't really know it. You know what
Mhm.
you're looking at. Football. You know what a touchdown is. You know what it means
Sure.
to the basket, home run, haha. But the idea of being able to kind of like watch to literally come up from behind home plate as a catcher or to be on first base, which is what I played that year. And it's funny because the games that I caught from my brother. That was the irony. It was the only time I caught for him was from my brother. And I remember just pulling the mask off and literally telling a right field to hit the cutoff man. I
Mhm.
just instinctively said it, and I thought about it, and I was like, how do I know that? How did that just kind of pop into my head? And of course, they have been telling us that since day one. I mean, you guys know what Little League
Sure.
coaches are like. And you fall deeply in love. And I've always loved it because my grandpa, who loved baseball, because his friend loved baseball, but he already loved baseball. And I was kind of enmeshed in it, that so much so that they actually took me to go see the Baltimore Orioles play the Philadelphia Phillies at Memorial Stadium. And I got a chance to watch John Denver sing "Thank God I'm a Country Boy." It was the night that President Reagan attended the game.
Mhm.
And they brought in John Denver, who sang the national anthem and sang that song from the dugout. I went back and watched that before we actually got a chance to talk today. And I'd forgotten how simple and basic the production values were of games back then, of the lack of comfort for the players themselves. They were just starting to get rich back then. Free agency had just
Sure.
really kicked in. And I remember watching that. I remember thinking, things didn't seem small. It just seemed like a different time. It didn't seem smaller. It seemed very much simpler. Like I said, the graphics, there was no sabermetrics, none of that kind of stuff in regards to application. And I remember thinking to myself as I watched it then, what a big deal it all seemed. And one of the things that I loved about baseball was that as I got a little bit older, as I realized that baseball, and I think this is what it has in common with grilling as well, is that it takes a lot of time, but once it gets going, and once we get towards the end, we've got to be really careful what happens next, because grilling takes forever and a day. But once you get to the point where the burgers are almost ready, you've got to be able to take them off almost instantly. It's like you literally do this really easy stuff, and you make some mistakes, and you kind of muddle through, and then things get better. But you've got to keep getting better throughout the process of it, because the final product, if you're going to do it, has to kind of be brought home. And I just remember thinking that so much of my life was then spent thinking in baseball terms. There are moments I gravitate towards, football coaches, process, and systems, and I get that. But that seems like an attempt to organize the world, to force it into something that it's not. Whereas baseball seems like an attempt to accept the world for what it has to offer us, and to kind of go within the confines and the boundaries. But as you know, sometimes those confines and boundaries, the chalk line gets a little mussed, you
Mhm.
know, and sometimes we don't know whether the ball, crossed home plate or whether they got there in time. Although in this World Series, good God Almighty,
Yeah.
but even now, but I think in many ways those stories, and as I got ready to kind of talk to you guys about this, I began to kind of say, well, why do I love the sport so much? And why did the idea of a bunch of guys who had a barbecue and baseball podcast make my wife and I kind of reach out and say, oh, we got to get those guys on. I mean, America apple pie and all that kind of groovy
That's
stuff.
right.
But there's something else about the two things I think is just really kind of spectacular and makes you just, yeah, you kind of begin to see it. It's like baseball is about sizzle, and it's only at the end that we get any sort of impact, maybe on the flip. But baseball is always about that kind of low level temperature that begins to build and build and build and build and build until finally the embers die out and the late evening, just where the embers always seem to die out, and we're kind of left just in the glowing light of what was. I don't know. That's my little
That's
thing I thought
beautiful.
about.
Yeah.
Jeff, that was,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
gonna say, Jimmy, I don't think we've ever had anyone describe it like that. That's almost Casey at the bat.
Oh my God! Little known fact, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but the next day Casey went 4 for 6 and drove in 7 runs. Casey's
Right.
fine. It's the rest of us that night who were sore.
Right.
That's why they play the next day.
That's
That's
why they play
right.
the next day. Oh
You
my
know,
God! What's so funny is that I'm like we were talking about this, that I read so much kind of highbrow literature, and but it's funny, and a lot of stuff I just love. I mean, I can talk to you about French essentialists, but I literally there are passages from the book The Natural that I can quote at will because I've
oh,
memorized them, because the descriptions in that book, and I've memorized all of Casey at the bat, which nobody ever needs to hear again. Um, but yeah, there's just something about baseball in there. I mean, it's just like, and if there ever was a better painter invented for baseball than Norman Rockwell, I do not want to meet him.
mm,
Oh yeah, the Saturday Evening Post. That
yeah.
was, yeah.
Yes. A couple of things, Jimmy. You mentioned the natural. We had on our show Rick Cerrone, who was a consultant to the movie
A
in
great
that.
catcher,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't the catcher. He was the PR director for the Yankees. They had the same
Yes.
name, different guy.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah.
cool. That's cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's a
Yeah.
good. I didn't hear he was a consultant. Barry Levinson directed that, by the
Yeah.
way. Once again, another person perfectly suited because he was able to make it look like a Rockwell painting. It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, and we kind of think of baseball and barbecue as kind of an American thing, but not really now. I mean, it is worldwide. You have baseball in Japan and Korea, in the Caribbean countries, in Europe.
Oh my God, it is.
It's
By the
everywhere.
way, let's get really political here for a second. And I mean this, don't worry, we're not going to talk about the people who occupy quarters of power. But I mean, let's face it. I mean, baseball is, I mean, I got to tell you, football's got a little bit of the socialism, a little bit of the fascism kind of lurking around inside of there. Baseball, man, baseball's about, literally it's free soilers. I mean, it's the Republican Party of 1856. It's people who can pick up their trowel and come across borders and ply their trade. And it's about the meritocracy, and it's about people out there to make as much money as they possibly can. It's individuals who have to come together and then break apart. I mean, yeah, but baseball's the truth. Football's in many ways what we'd like to impose upon the universe. Baseball is the acceptance of the universe.
Yes.
It's like George Carlin. Yeah, I'm waiting for you. In football, we command the field. In baseball, we want to go home.
I'm going home. The only place I disagree with Carlin in that marvelous monologue is I don't think he galvanizes baseball enough.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I actually think that in baseball, the heroic football has very little room for the heroic that is about like not getting the hell kicked out of you or avoiding getting the hell kicked out of you. And I think that the violence in baseball, when it does occur, is so rare that it's a frisson kick. Those collisions at home plate, what I'm saying? People that slam into the wall, those moments stay with you because they don't happen.
Right. Exactly.
Mostly it's about ballet. Mostly it's like literally watching like Greek and Roman heroes from old. I mean, the idea of these graceful, athletic, amazing people with rocket arms, and all that kind of groovy stuff. Sorry, I'm telling you, I love baseball.
Yeah.
And you're the perfect person for this
Yeah,
show. I mean,
exactly.
no apologizing. Can you imagine? Sorry, I hate baseball and barbecue sucks.
What are you talking about? Let's just go take it. Let's go all take it inside, get some queso, and watch some football. We use the microwave to make the queso around here. Oh my
Right.
God!
No,
That's
no,
not
can't do
American.
that. Can't do that.
So Jimmy, you've been to 50 states, all 50 states, and some of them are well known for their barbecue, others not so, but barbecue is becoming just nationwide everywhere. There's always a hole in the wall place or whatever. You have a favorite type of barbecue and a place that you had it?
The North Carolina barbecue that actually uses the vinegar. I really, really like that. There are places like, I mean, Dreamland in Alabama is extraordinary. The Alabama white sauce is great. I can go on for a while here. I mean, there's places in Memphis that use that dry rub on their ribs.
Hmm.
I really like. I think that I've been to a couple of tailgating things over in Kansas City. When I say tailgate, I don't just mean for the Chiefs game. I mean like people just out in their yards doing some stuff over there. One of our trucking associations that we're close with. We do a segment on the show once a week called Washington Trucking Week, and we have the Owner Operator Independent Drivers Association. Their shorthand is Dave. Trucking is an alphabet soup, guys. I mean, it's NASTIC and NACFE and OOIDA is OIDA, and they're the owner operator independent drivers. They represent about 100 to 140, 50,000 independent operators, people who have their own authority or people who rent their trucks to larger companies. Because one of the other really cool ways that baseball and trucking have in common is the fact, I don't know if you guys know this, over 90% of all trucks on the road are owned by small companies. That the big giant fleets are only 10 to maybe 15% of what you see.
Right.
You don't notice it because you see stuff like Saya and Crete and Swift.
Yellow too.
Yeah,
Yellow.
Yellow. Well, Yellow's not here anymore. I mean,
Oh, it's not.
Yellow's done. No, Yellow collapsed. That was a
Oh,
big, big story in our space too. And then Yellow tried to sue the Teamsters, who they said did it to them. It was a big story for us because in many ways, just like baseball is the story of America, trucking is the story of America. So OOIDA, while they have offices in Washington, D.C., because they're an association that lobbies for their members, their offices are in a small community right outside of Kansas City called Grain Valley. And I'm very, very lucky because they're all big baseball fans over there and they're all big Chiefs fans. And one of my four teams that I root for consistently is Kansas City Royals. And so I spend a lot of time kind of talking with them. I travel a lot, Leonard, because we go to a lot of trucking shows, but
Right.
also I do a lot of work with veterans. We do a lot of work helping veterans make the transition from the military life into civilian life. The training and the onboarding and helping that transition. And a lot of that military work is the sponsor of the studio, meaning the folks who ponied up the money to buy us the equipment for this new studio here in New Orleans. It's a company named Fastport, and they work in apprentices and veteran transitional stuff. And there are a lot of events, a lot of job fairs, a lot of fundraisers that involve helping men and women who here's the thing. It's like a baseball player in this way. So most people start their major league careers around like 24, 25, right?
yeah, yeah.
And then if they have a great career, 41, 42, it's over, unless of course you're Bartolo Colon, and then you play, until
Big sexy.
Yep.
you just keep on playing. I actually think he puts on mustaches and just play in other parts of the field. And or my other favorite, Jamie Moyer, who
Jimmy
somehow
Moore.
found the fountain of middle age at 40, and then had
Yeah.
like
Rich
had
Hill as
more,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
he had more wins after 40, and he almost gets what is he? He gets like the 270.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
up there. Yeah.
he's like 120 win season away from the Hall of Fame if he'd figured it out earlier. And you get these people in the military, they go in there at 19 and they come out at 39 and they think they're old.
Mm.
Many of them have a pension. Many of them have a GI Bill. Many of them have their whole life ahead of them, but they're also tired of people telling them what to do. But
Right.
they also know how to stay on mission and stay on task. They also know how to front face and present themselves. And so the American trucking industry at its best is a wonderful place for them to go because it has the structure, but it also requires initiative. And so a lot of that travel, Leonard, to places, like Puerto Rico and to places, like Maine and, all across the West Coast and all of those places. Hawaii, by the way, is a trucking association. They actually came on our show a couple of weeks ago. He got up at 5:30 in the morning to be on the 10:30 slot for us.
Oh, wow.
And he was so warm and so generous. Their trucking association, sorry, I'm all over the place, but it's like
Yeah.
their trucking association is more tourist driven, meaning their CDL holders are bus drivers and garbage men, which is a big thing for them. Their trucks are last mile trucks. Hawaii is so small that when stuff arrives at the airport, they're picking it up and driving it maybe a few miles to get it there. But their big trucking population is tourist driven. They drive the buses and they drive the tour buses and they drive the entertainment around and all that kind of stuff as well too. So we go to these places to talk to truck drivers, to let them know they're not alone, to give them a voice, and to let them know somebody's out there looking out for them, as Dave has always done. Because the old road gang, the original road gang, worked overnight. It was 11 o'clock at night to 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And they had the crazy idea that the only people out there driving that late at night on a regular basis were truck drivers. And they thought they would tell jokes and play country and Western music and tell people really funny stories and let people call in with dedications and just let them know that they weren't alone. And, and so we kind of continue that tradition. We do it digitally now. We do it through a whole bunch of different means. But the idea is to get out there and let these people know that we're real, that we're thinking about them, and that there's a future in trucking in a very contentious time for trucking. We were laughing about it the other day. The managing editor of one of the biggest trucking newspapers in the country, we basically said right now in trucking, it's like a fire hose of information. I mean, a lot of the things that we knew about, that people were complaining about, that people were concerned about, a lot of these men and women had deep concerns about what was going on the highways, and nobody was listening to them. What's happening right now is we're finding out that on both sides of the aisle, there are people who care deeply about them. And on both sides of the aisle, there are people who are taking advantage of them. And it's been a really crazy couple of years going places and getting a chance to really hear what these men and women are saying. So I've always said my political party now is the truckers. If it's good for them, I'm for it. If it's bad for them, I'm against it. Even sometimes when they don't know it's bad for them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That we make a commitment to telling them the truth, and we like our position as honest brokers. People don't think we're on anybody's side but the truckers. So, but yeah, seeing the country is great. It's great, and those barbecue places. There's one down in New Orleans. There are actually two in New Orleans. Blue Oak Barbecue on Carrollton Avenue, and the Joint down in down close to what is used to be called the Ninth Ward, is now called the Bywater, is North Carolina style. They're both North Carolina style. There's also one across from the Superdome that was a demolished old lot that has been turned into kind of a big sort of public space. I got to get the name of that for you. There's some good places here. I'd get seafood before I got barbecue in New Orleans, though. So.
I heard of the Joint. I think we that's a pretty famous place, the Joint.
Yeah, and the ribs are really good. I think
Yeah.
what they really do well is their ribs. The problem is, unless you get there at 11:30, the line is around the block. So
Right.
when it sells out, it's like the ribs go and they're just gone.
Yes. I got to talk to you about the trucking culture. I mean, I'm going to take it back 50 years because I remember a friend of mine had a CB radio and they had a handle, and I assume they don't have CB radios anymore. I might be wrong. I
They
don't.
do. They
They
do.
do?
Channel 19 is alive, but it's not well. A lot of now there are people who say that it's important to have. We, and by the way, remind me after the show's over with to send you, as you guys know, that we broadcast radionemo.com broadcasts on so many different platforms, but a lot of our content is available on YouTube on every single, like if you typed in baseball barbecue and road gang radio,
Hmm.
your episode would come up
Right.
on Spotify. It would come
Hmm.
up almost immediately.
Hmm.
Remind me to send you. We used to have a guy. He retired, but his replacement is fantastic. It was a segment called "On the Highway with Tom Bray." He's a former Army captain. He's also a former. He's a current volunteer fire chief. He was a truck driver for the better part of 2 decades, but he became a special rules and regulations consultant for the company J.J. Keller. And he came on and he did a CB culture half hour with me to kind of explain that. That was just spectacular. I'll send that to you because it's great stuff. But Channel 19 is there, and there are a lot of old school truckers that say you need to have it in case of real emergencies. Because
Oh,
sometimes the
okay.
satellite goes out and the radio goes out, and sometimes the only thing between people and starvation and people and like not having water, and sometimes people in a place to stand to avoid the flood water is an 18-wheeler with a flatbed or a trailer on it.
Hmm.
So it's there, but it ain't there no more. Now,
People really should be more appreciative of truckers. I know, on the highway, I mean, they they bring everything to you. They actually do bring everything to you. And I got a better appreciation when I was on a road trip to Cleveland, and I stopped along the one of the trucking rest stops, and this was shocking to me. I did not know they actually had showers and entertainment there for the truckers because they're on the road all the time. I had no idea.
Look up Iowa 80 if you get a chance. And anybody listening, I know you guys got a really loyal group of people that listen. Look up Iowa 80. Look up the Tennessean, which Dolly Parton just purchased. There are some really charming old school. And by the way, in regards to movies too, if you ever want to see what old the trucking movies really don't capture it as well as they could in regards to that sort of culture. They get a lot. Smokey and the Bandit's a good movie, straight up a good movie. Convoy's half a good movie. But if you ever want to see what a real truck stop from the 70s looked like, and you guys, we all know what they look like because we've actually been there, but a
Right.
lot of people have no sense of it. But if you really want to be like, oh my God, that's what they look like. Michael Cimino, who did The Deer Hunter, his first breakthrough movie was a great movie with Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges called Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Ah, yes, that's an
And
old
there's a
yes.
scene where he goes in there to stop and make a couple of phone calls. And man, you see those old time phone booths, where you
Oh
walk
yeah.
in, close the door, those pay phones, just a wall of them. And that bar room, I mean, that restaurant bar room is packed and it's got cigarette smoke in the air and the shop on the other side. And you get a real sense of those old time trucks things. I don't know if you guys know this. TA Petro has been one of our sponsors for the longest of time. And, we have an ongoing segment once a week with them called Maintenance Matters, where the head of their maintenance, I mean, the guy, their chief mechanic of all TA Petro, service centers,
Hmm.
comes on and we talk about how to maintain your truck. And not how to do major repairs, but how to prevent major repairs unless you get in an accident. And I'm gonna tell you all one thing. Here's my advice to both of you: change your air filters. If any part of your car or truck has a filter, that's the first thing you want to change. Keep it changed. It's the same as changing the air filters on your air conditioner. Change them. Change
All
them.
right. Very good. That good advice. Jimmy, let's bring it back to food. As you're talking and you guys are reminiscing and Jeff saying, about the trucks, my grandfather, when I was a little kid, and diners were more prevalent all over the country. I think, they used to be, or if it wasn't a diner, it was just a little restaurant or whatever. You didn't have the chains like you have now, where you can stop. And my grandfather used to say he'd always pick the places that had the trucks, the most trucks in the parking lot, because
Oh
he
yeah.
said truckers know good food. And and he always would look for that. And actually, he became a trucker. My grandfather was a trucker at one
How
point.
long was he a trucker for?
This was, I don't know exactly, but I know it's a whole thing. He used to go, I guess, in the winter time. He would leave for long periods of time and go trucking in parts of the country that were warmer or something. And I know that because my mother always talks about how he'd be gone for long periods of time, and and she didn't like the snow because the snow reminded her of when he was
Yeah.
away. But I don't know. But he was a trucker, and it's funny. He was a very good driver later in life too. You know
Oh yeah.
when and and it makes sense because truckers are phenomenal drivers. He was a
Phenomenal.
very good driver.
Phenomenal. And here's the thing
Yeah.
too, is the fact that so we do another segment of the show called Education Station where we talk to trainers and places that, legit places, accredited places that give you your CDL. And we have another regular contributor, this guy who actually runs the driver training program in Tulsa at Tulsa Tech, guy by the name of Donnie Tulk. And he's exactly who you think he is. Laid back, good old, he actually puts the good and decent in a good old boy. And he he one time told me, and I love this line. He goes, "We don't teach you to drive. We teach you how to back up. The driving is easy. Backing up is hard." And I love that. I think that is exactly. I mean, the kind of people that can back up something on a dock and come within a dime of touching it and not touching it, knowing exactly how far back they get. And he talks about the idea of the new technology in many ways. I wanted to ask you about your grandpa though. What did he do when he wasn't driving a truck? Because there's a couple of patterns people who drive a truck part-time fall into. And was he a farmer in any way, or was
No,
he
he
a mechanic in any
so
way?
he drove a truck. He also worked at carpet stores. I know there used to be a carpet store called Allen Carpet, and he worked there, but I don't know. I think the trucking was way before I was born. It was when my mom was little. But so I don't really know as much as I should, and maybe the next
Who
time
does?
you
Leonard,
know,
who does?
yeah. But I just know, and he was not a tall guy or whatever. He was extremely strong though, very athletic, and he would, you know, from what I hear, he would command the vehicle and drive the truck and just, you know, that's all I know. But
We were my producer who you guys met, Andre Thibodeau, who is just a wonderful human being, the guy that called you up, put you on the air with us.
mhm.
He and I were joking about it because he's in very, very good shape. And we were saying that there is Jim Strong, there is Farm Boy Strong, there is Army Strong, and then there's Old Man Strong. And then one of our callers called. He said, "Well, forget that Jim Strong stuff." He said, "I'll tell you right now, man." He said, "Those last three are the same three." And he's right. I mean, there's these people who just, we always think about the sculpted bodies, but there are just, there's these guys out there who just work all their life pulling up carpet, lifting heavy stuff, having to work a stick shift, 18 gears, all kinds of stuff, who just, tough people. It's a great reminder.
Yeah.
We stand on the shoulders of some really tough people, man.
Now
Yeah.
you
Jimmy,
mentioned Jimmy, you mentioned movies before. What is the movie? Uh, I don't know if it's a great trucking movie, but it's with Sylvester Stallone.
Over the
He's
top.
Yeah, over the top.
Over the top. It's fun. It's not very accurate, but here's something really fun. Dave Nemo was actually in that movie and ended up on the cutting room floor. He was the judge. He was supposed to be the judge of the final arm wrestling competition, and they shot it, and he got cut out of the movie.
I
Got
hope he
cut out
got
of the
paid
movie.
though.
Oh yeah. And by the way, there are people who, and the name of the main character is Lincoln Hawk. Sylvester Stallone plays Lincoln Hawk. I mean,
Puts the hat on backwards, and I put the hat backwards in it. Yeah,
that's pretty good, actually.
it
You,
it
you are good to
it turns the switch on. It when I put the hat like this, I'm okay. When I turn it backwards, the switch goes on.
Jimmy, at these
Perfect.
trucking shows, uh, do they have barbecue set up for these guys,
Yeah. Well, set up for them. That
or
most
any
they actually
barbecues coming out there?
they do have food trucks, but a lot of these guys over in the truckers lot will just be like, "No, we got it. We got it." People will take it off the back of their trucks. People have it in the back of their cabs. People will have. I mean, I know people that have assembled. They take out the big metal case and then open it up and then assemble a grill. Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's some serious barbecue customers. There's a reason why every year on the weekend, once in the summer and once in the winter, we did those shows. And we got some really great guests. We got duck dinners, which was a really there's a show that is set on the bayou. Guy's a world class chef, but he was always kind of doing hunting trips out there in his cabin and then kind of cooking up stuff there. And yeah, there's a real yeah the barbecue culture in the South, as you guys know, and it's great everywhere. I did tell you the funny story. We go to Maine every year in the summer for this stem to stone event that Reefs Across America has, and they serve barbecue at the event. And I make this really clear: the barbecue they serve is very good. The catering company that they bring in, these are guys know what they're doing. It's really good. But Brad Bentley, my friend from Fastport, and I were up there. We're eating it. It's good barbecue, guys. And somebody goes, "This is just as good." They said, "This is just as good as anything you'd find down in the deep South." And we literally put our forks down. And I said, "Yeah, just as good as the lobster I had on my steak a couple of weeks ago at Ruth Chris down in New Orleans." And the guy looked at me and he said, "I actually get what you mean. I'm really sorry." I said, "No, it's okay. It's okay." And it was because it was Southern barbecue. It wasn't that it was barbecue. I think that barbecue in this country, that every single region of the country has a different version of barbecue that is uniquely theirs. That is great. I don't know what it is though about the South in particular, because the Midwesterners would fight us on this. By the way, our friends in Kansas City and Northern Texas might have a word with us.
Oh
Sure.
yeah,
The South.
them's fighting
Yeah,
words.
yeah. I've always kind of considered Texas, and they would hate me for saying this. Texas is the France of the United States. Yeah, where it's like, oh yeah, we're part of Europe, but we're France first. And Texas is the same way. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, USA, USA, Texas.
Now, Jimmy, you mentioned a couple of things before. You said Alabama white barbecue sauce, which is famous from Big Bob Gibson, Chris Lilly, who we had the opportunity to meet and have on the show for a quick interview. And it's amazing how that sauce originated from there, and
Oh,
it's so
it's just
good. It's so
I
good.
actually got a chance. We talked about being a teacher, right, Jeff? I got a chance to teach in Tuscaloosa for about 2.5 years at the University of Alabama. Great time doing it. And I will tell you, it's amazing that when people have something like that in their community, Dreamland and a lot of the places that are, across the state of Alabama, they're so Leonard, they're so proud of that, man. It is a point of real individual pride that they have something that is so uniquely theirs.
Hmm.
So and by the way, they deserve it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's like, let me ask you a question. You guys had it, right? I mean, you've had it, right? You've had
Oh
that
yeah.
white sauce, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm making sure.
Hmm.
Were you prepared for how it tasted?
No. No. I mean, I was yeah, it's better than I ever thought it would be. I really was very surprised. I did not think I would like it as much, and I am a big fan of it.
Because the thing is, the first time I tried it, I didn't know what I was tasting, if that makes any sense. It is such a uniquely different taste from what you normally have with barbecue. But
Hmm.
at the same time, and you guys can disagree with me on this, at the same time, you go, oh my God, this works. And the only mistake I made was that I had no prep. I've always, anytime I've taken anybody about it, and I will tell them this is kind of what it's going to taste like. So they don't, am I making sense? So you don't prep yourself for expectations. I just said, if you have no expectations, I think it's immediately good because I was so kind of taken aback. Have you ever bit into something thinking it was going to be one thing and it was another, but it was
Yes.
good? It
Oh
was
yeah.
good. It just
Hmm.
wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Like one
Right.
time I was in Puerto Rico and I picked up a pastry, but it was a spicy pastry. It was a meat pastry rather than a fruit pastry, and took a
Right.
big bite and couldn't process what I
Yeah.
was eating. And
That's the whole thing. There's bakers and that make cakes and things like that that look like, you know, a realistic looking hamburger, and then you bite into it and it's sweet.
oh my God, that's the
It
strangest thing, isn't
yeah.
it? I mean,
It's
that is like
very odd.
that is
Mm.
really and it's like, well, I got to tell you, there's one time I was at a really fancy restaurant in London where they made playing cards that were actually white chocolate and infused with raspberry, and it was a royal flush, but it had the consistency of cards. And like, eat them. I'm like, is it going to be a piece of paper in my mouth? And I bit into it, guys. I swear to God, it was like white chocolate and raspberry juice got unleashed in my mouth. And I,
Mm.
I, I couldn't process what the hell it was. No, yeah, Alabama white sauce is something else. It is just, I couldn't believe I'd like it so much because I love that North Carolina stuff because my undergraduate degree is from the University of Georgia, and at the end of the year we would drive up to Highlands, North Carolina, and there was a lot of local barbecue in Highlands I mean, street barbecue, where this was back when I was still drinking, and they would have moonshine guaranteed less than 20 days old, and and that will literally put hair on your chest. But we would go get that, and I love places where there's no sides. Where they have like one side, deal with it. Like they'll have like their slaw, or they'll have their potato salad, or they'll have their
Hmm.
their pork and beans, and they're like, that's it. What do it's like the great Jackie Gleason joke. You here to talk or you here to drink. And there's a sense of are you here for the sides or are you here for brisket? Are you here for the sides or are you here for ribs? And
Yes.
it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze me how good it is. And I missed a chance to go to Tuscaloosa last week because I was with my parents who were elderly. But my friend goes to Alabama games every single time they play in Tuscaloosa, and I don't miss many chances either because it's a chance to get those ribs. I like
Yeah.
them. I like
Yeah.
them. I like
Um, we're talking about the Kansas City Royals, and do you remember the player Mark Littell by any chance?
No, I don't, but the name rings a bell. Help me
Yeah.
out.
He gave up the
Uh,
home run to Chris Chambliss in
I
1976
know
that
who
put
that.
the
Okay,
Yankees
okay, my God, oh
second
my God.
series.
Why was that name ringing a bell? Because all I remember is watching that video. Matter of fact, that video of that home run, I post every year on the anniversary of it on my Facebook page to remind people when people say things have never been as bad as they are in the country as they are right now. We have never been more crazy or stupid. Can you imagine the national commission that would be set at the end of that game if that happened today? If at the end of like game 6 of the National League Championship Series, American League Championship Series,
Mhm.
Dodger Stadium or Yankee Stadium stormed the field and tore the field apart and attempted to tackle
Yeah.
those guys surrounding the
Right.
base. I mean, can you imagine Freddie Freeman? Although he probably killed those people. He's so dead.
Right.
I think the 70s, by the way, guys, or maybe the late Lindsay, my co-host, and I were talking about this because she was wondering. We're talking about the Grand Ole Opry, and she was wondering, that something seems to have been lost. And she wasn't being like back in the day. She likes a lot of the stuff now,
Right.
but she said that there's something missing from a lot of performers and athletes now. And I said, oh, it's really simple. What? I said, the guy in the front row of the baseball stadium doesn't make anywhere near as much as the guy that works on plays first base now. 40, 50 years ago, they did,
Yeah.
or they at least were close, and that's not the case anymore. And I think the idea of running out on the field back then was because these guys were part of the neighborhood, that only a
Sure.
few of them were millionaires, only a few of them, but, that I can't even imagine. Like, and Herzog could have challenged that play.
Yeah.
He could have challenged it. Chambliss
Yeah.
never touched home
That's
plate.
home plate, right?
He gets an escort from the NYPD to get back
Right.
out there and do it,
Afterwards.
but they stole the base.
Yes.
And was it Herzog that basically said, I'm not protesting this game. I'd like to get out of the
Right.
city alive.
Yeah.
What is it? You have like 24 hours to lodge the official protest. And he's like, I'm not lodging that complaint. I'm gonna get killed. It's a bad scene. It
Yeah.
was a bad scene. I remember that, but it's like that's still marvelous. I watched that with my grandfather.
Yeah.
I watched that together. We watched that together. That was his favorite thing to do because the other thing is you have to remember I'm from New Orleans. So it isn't until the Cubs and the Braves get their super channels that I'm able to see baseball outside of Saturday game of the week.
Right. Right.
I was very lucky that I was raised partially raised by a man who loved baseball and his best friend who loved baseball. But the idea of seeing baseball as a New Orleanian, you go see college baseball maybe,
Mhm.
and you live for that TV.
Yeah.
It's when Bob Costas talks about the Sandberg game.
Oh, yeah.
Right. There's 7 or 8 games like that a year.
Yeah.
Except
I'm looking at players who were born in Louisiana, and you have some really good players: Albert Bell, Vida Blue, Joe Adcock. Some of these guys are really Will Clark, as you mentioned
Will
earlier.
Clark graduates the year before I arrive at the school. My brother was already there. The great joke about Will Clark at Jesuit High School, which is the same place Harry Connick went to as well. He used to make the joke. Harry Connick was my ride to high school my junior year.
Mhm.
And by the way, speaking of politics, his father was DA, and my mom's brother was essentially a defendant's judge, is how they described him. He was a judge that believed in civil rights and all kind of crazy concepts like that. And he and Connick used to war all the time. But I was friends with Harry. He was terrific. But they used to say about Will Clark, one guy told me that there wasn't enough mustard on the field to cover Will Clark when he played at Jesuit. But he had that swing. He had that swing back at Jesuit. He had that swing back at Jesuit.
He's also he's a great storyteller. He has a
Oh,
podcast.
it's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, it's so
He
funny.
gets it from his dad. He
Uh-huh.
gets it from his dad. His Hernandez, by the way, he's got the great story about the Angel Hernandez about being how to get good calls out of Hernandez. He said just bought him beers.
Right.
He's bought him beers all the time, and he was fine. You guys know who? You remember who Will Clark played with?
The Giants and the Rangers.
No, when he played at Mississippi State.
Oh no,
He
I don't
played
remember.
college baseball, Mississippi State. The other guy that played with him was Rafael Palmeiro.
Oh, okay.
They were
How
they
about
were
that?
they were the 3 and 4 hitters in the lineup, which is like
Uh-huh.
the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Now
That's
that's not uncommon because LSU baseball, as you guys know, they love baseball down here. They just
Mhm.
have to not have a major league one.
Right.
Although you can make a case given the fact that think about, well, look at the Pittsburgh Pirates. Look at their big starting pitcher.
Paul Skeens, yeah.
Skeens is LSU. It's all those guys go to LSU, and it's because you can play year round.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's the big thing. And
Yes.
Alex Box Stadium, you guys should go there at some point. If you get a chance, the tailgating over in Alex Box Stadium, the barbecue that's there, and the baseball field are really beautiful.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but in Omaha, when the College World Series, the people in Omaha root for LSU to make it
Oh, really?
Really.
because of the money they bring.
They bring in, yes.
It's
Okay.
it's all oil money, and it's the best. They have the worst home fans you could possibly imagine at their football games, and the best road fans in every sport. Because those
Right.
people have a little bit of extra money, and they're really great to kind of be around. Guys, I'm talking too much. What else you got?
No, I got two other questions for you. I mean, I want to talk about, Dave Nemo, who founded Radio Nemo and Road Gang Radio. I want to know why you call him Sneaky Dave.
Why do I call him Sneaky Dave?
Yes.
Okay, this is really funny because Dave literally is Tom Sawyer. Dave literally is Tom Sawyer. The thing about paint the fence. Oh, this is the most fun thing you ever did in your life. I mean, Dave, the way to kind of conceive of Dave Nemo is like this combination of Arnold Palmer and Tom Sawyer. It's a guy that is, Dave tells a great story. Well, his producer brought his new girlfriend to the studio and introduced him to Dave and introduced her to Dave. And the first thing she said goes, "Oh, you make mistakes all the time, don't you?" Was how she literally first addressed Dave. She said, "You make mistakes all the time." And he thought at first, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then he realized, oh, Dave, there's a thing where you can never figure out with Dave whether or not he is completely scatterbrained or if it's completely all there. And there is evidence in direction of both arguments. I mean, there was literally a time that we were at a truck show in Nashville, and the guest for the next segment was seated with us, and the commercial was counting down from 30. And he was all the way across the other side talking with these girls over at this charity thing, doing nice work. Well, like, you got to come on. And he comes running across. He jumps into his chair. He drops his microphone, picks it up, and then literally calms down when we say you're on and gives the name of the guy perfectly, the organization he works for, and then proceeds to engage in a 15-minute interview where he was completely on top of it.
Wow.
And we call him Sneaky Dave because he's always you'll also be on the air with him though, and you realize, wait a minute, where did Dave go? And you're in the middle of interviewing somebody who's supposed to be the co-interviewer, and he snuck away. And he's just talking with somebody. Like, Dave, you have to get back. And you can never be quite sure whether, in fact, Sneaky Dave is, in fact, really sneaking or just forgetting. So that's Dave Nemo. He and Charlie Douglas, the Road Gang is really a brilliant piece of idea. 50,000 watts out of WWL 870 AM. And as you guys know, any radio signal is either a fire hose or it's a circumference.
Right.
And part of the problem was because it was in New Orleans was the center of it, and the circumference went into the Gulf of Mexico. Mm-hmm. The Jesuits convinced the FCC to push the circumference where New Orleans is the bottom of the circle. And in doing so, they create a broadcast radius that, unless a stronger signal in a city interferes with it, can be heard all the way up into Canada and all the way across the West and East Coast and down into the South. Massive signal.
Wow.
Charlie Douglas was a country and Western DJ at a place called WTIX, and he would drive home every day. Remember, at this point, Dave, who had worked for WWL, served his duty in the Army over in Korea. He basically did Adrian Cronauer's job in Korea. He was the broadcaster in Seoul. So he did that. He had a death warrant on his head. He's very proud of that. The North Koreans wanted to put an end to him. But Charlie has this idea. He's driving home and he realizes, wait a minute. He said, they're playing jazz. It's a 24-hour station, and they're playing jazz and classical music to help get a whole bunch of old ladies to sleep. And it dawns on him. He's like, I'm driving home, and all I see at 11 o'clock at night are trucks everywhere. And so he basically goes to the Jesuits and he says, I want to do an overnight show where I play a little country, a little rock and roll, tell a few jokes, and kind of just make our way down the road. And the Jesuits say, well, what do we have to pay you? And he goes, nothing. And they say, you'll do it for free. He says, no, I want 15% of Firestone and steel belted radios and Phillips 76 and everybody that actually sells things to truckers when they show up. And by the time they get to 72, 73, Time Life was doing a story on them because Dave joins about a year later when he comes back from Korea. There's a Time Life story where they're making $535,000 a year in 1972.
Wow. That's good money back then. Good money
Uh,
today,
I mean,
but back
that's
then.
good. Back then, in regards to revenues and
Yeah.
sales, it's extraordinary. And the CB radio almost killed them, but then the CB radio killed itself because it became kind of a cesspool for all the fun talk that the movies tend to suggest.
Mhm.
A lot of it got really nasty. So the road gang went in a different direction. It avoided the blue and the risque. It was incredibly irreverent, but it really was about taking requests and letting people know. The number of truck drivers that found out that they had children, Jeff and Leonard, that found that out because of Dave Nemo telling them you need to get over to a payphone at the next truck stop and call home.
Mhm.
The number of babies that were announced by Dave Nemo overnight on that shift, it's it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
And they would do the news. And as Dave said, the funniest thing was on Rampart Street on the edge of the French Quarter. And he said the number of times that he couldn't get out in the street in the morning because some drunk had passed out on the WWL door after a long night of drinking in the French Quarter. But I mean, it basically existed in that weird and wonderful time that I think in some ways we've lost in America. That Norman Mailer talked about it in Superman Comes to the Supermarket, the idea of there's a whole America that exists on the patina of jazz in the American night. And he was part of that. That's
Yeah.
where the road gang comes from. And doing 55 years,
Wow.
55 years of it.
Great.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time, and this has been fascinating. I have one last question for you, and we'll let you go because it's been a pleasure talking to you. Could you tell us about Project 61? Because when I was looking at this, I had no idea, and this is a very important charity.
Heartbreaking.
If you can please talk about it.
It's heartbreaking. Jeremy Raymer is a really forward-thinking individual, and the average age of the American male trucker. Let's be honest, this isn't about women. The women truckers, they do okay health-wise. The American male trucker is dead at 61. They don't enjoy, but as you said, they deliver all those goods and services. They bring so much joy and so much life to so many people, and they bring so much relief. Can I tell you right now, had it not been for Walmart trucks, the city of New Orleans would have died of thirst after Katrina.
Mm.
They bring so much life and so much joy, and many of them are dying before they even can collect their Social Security. And it is a staggering number. And if you think about it, it's worse than it even sounds because there are plenty of guys in trucking who live good lives, who take care of themselves, who do keep driving to 75 and 80. When you add them into the equation, it means there's a lot of men that are dying before they even sniff 60.
Right.
Heart disease, diabetes, cigarettes. We can go
Mhm.
on and on and on. And it's a commitment to get moving. Project 61, Jeremy Remmers, is a commitment to move. It's a commitment to get moving. Dave just cut a beautiful video for them. I'm proud of him. He had a heart attack about a decade ago and made a commitment to life. And we've kind of used ourselves as examples. I mean, I'm in okay shape. I'm not bad for a guy pushing 60. But Dave has made a real commitment, and he's made that commitment to his family and his friends. But he also made that commitment because he wanted to make sure we put our money where our mouth is, and let these drivers know that there are all kinds of little stuff. There's a lot of people in the space, guys. Hope Savara, who's Mother Trucker Yoga. Our friends over at the St. Christopher Fund with Rigs Without SIGs. There's a lot of folks, but Project 61 is the one that lands because, Jeff, I'm willing to bet when you found out why it was called 61, it must have, I mean, good
Yeah.
God Almighty. I
Right.
mean, anybody hitting 61 should have 20 years left, minimum.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really feel that way. Minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum,
And
especially when you give me food,
yeah.
No.
Absolutely. I mean, you were saying that the truckers they're on the road hours at a time. They're not moving. I mean, the truckers move, but they aren't moving.
They're not
Their
moving.
bodies, they got to move. They have to eat right and they have to rest correctly. They're saying,
And the other thing is, it's like if you're going to have barbecue, I tell people all the time, we actually figured out, we think it's anywhere from 30 to 40 laps or power laps around a truck, is we think a mile. And we tell people all the time, get out the truck and just walk your truck in circles, guys. That's what Mother Trucker Yoga does. She shows them stretches they can do while driving that will
mhm,
also prevent them from getting sick. But think about the damage to your ears.
right.
I mean, just what the idea of being in that cab and that roaring engine and all that sound and the bumps and the bruises, and you're just basically, what the worst thing you can do for your engine is?
What?
Turn it on.
Turn it on.
Because the moment you turn it on, you start running it, it starts wearing down, man.
Hmm.
It's like, Yeah, I mean, we love these guys. We love these guys. It's like I said, and I'm not kidding. It's why we brought you guys on the show because they deserve more than just people arguing and grievance. We brought you guys on the show because it's like they want to hear about barbecue. They want to hear about baseball. They want to hear
Yeah,
about people's dads and how they introduced them to baseball. And they want to hear stories about people, who care about them. It's why we do what we do. It's like, we've made these friends and our job, people often say, it's your job to report the news. No, no, it's not. It's my job for a man or a woman to look up and realize that 4 hours have gone by in the
right.
blink of an eye. And they're that much closer to the only place that really matters, which is back to baseball, home.
Right.
You know?
Everybody should go to Project 61 dash, let me say it again, project-61.org. Take a look at it. It's very important. Donate if you can. A lot of information here, and it's really something. It was eye-opening when I took a look at it.
Yeah, it's really important to Dave. And guys, by the way, you can go to radionemo.com. If you head over there, all the places that we give, the St. Christopher Fund, the Travis Manion Foundation, the Joshua Chamberlain Society, and Project 61, we are deeply involved. And by the way, that's another segment on our show, Highway to Health. We talked about prostate cancer today and about how it's important to get checked out. That's the other thing too. This is why I love you guys. I mean, I love you guys because, like I said, dudes over 50 need to make new friends. They need to talk to people. And we were just saying the other day, my dad actually, I came in, I was doing that baseball thing of having worked down. I was scratching my crotch. He's like, "You scratching that because you just you got a little, you got a little workout in there, or is that a real thing?" And I'm like, "No, it's workout." He goes, "If it's a real thing, we got to get that checked out." Okay, I get that shit checked out. Excuse me, guys. Sorry, you got to get that checked out. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, it's like, this is what's so important about this. I'm sorry, I'm really praising the hell out of you guys. I don't want to embarrass you.
Well,
Ah,
But
no, we
no,
praise away.
yeah, we should be praising you because of all the good work you do for all the
well,
people out there who's
Yeah,
making us country go. I mean,
but think
absolutely.
about what
absolutely.
you do. I mean, it's like this is the thing about having conversations that are about joy, but we're not complaining.
Right.
We're not
Hmm.
filling the air with grievance. It's like
That's
part of the
right.
reason why, one of the big reasons why you guys were invited, along with being entertaining, was it's not a grievance hour. It isn't about the teams I hate and the food that sucks. It's called, it's baseball and barbecue,
Yes.
and it's like it fills people with joy. And, there's a way of having a lot of joy in this world while still accepting there's a lot of sadness around because people do lose. I mean, as good as the Blue Jays played, I
Yeah.
have to ask you guys, what and are you guys hoping that Yamamoto literally has brought back the idea that you can pitch, a lot and not throw your arm out, that pitch counts need to go away?
I always believe that. I always believe that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because that seam stuff drives me crazy. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Leonard.
No, I was going to say, I think that, I was against pitch counts, but the more that we talk to players and managers and coaches, the way they throw now is
Yeah,
not natural. It's just not. The body is not meant to throw the ball that hard and for that long. So I think actually I this may shock Jeff because I haven't expressed this with him. This is the first time I've said this, but I actually kind of believe in the pitch clock now.
pitch
Pitch
clock.
clock, pitch
I
count.
believe in the
Sorry,
pitch clock, man. I'm a big fan of the pitch clock. I
pitch
believe in the
pitch
pitch
count.
count if you're going to throw. But I think that's a personal choice in the sense that it's like, Coach, I'm going to do a lot of four seamers tonight. I'm going to put a lot of velocity and spin on the ball. Watch my pitch count. But if you're throwing like Yamamoto, if you're throwing Greg Maddux style, if you're trying to outsmart people, which is
Hmm.
what he threw like that night, I mean,
Right.
that was a masterpiece.
Yes.
And isn't it funny that it was John Smoltz calling those games?
Yeah.
I think it's like
That was,
perfect that
yes.
literally the guy who pitched a 10 inning,
Yep.
9 inning and lost. Well, he wasn't actually the loser. He just didn't he got a no decision. But it's the craziest thing that I remember what I was going to tell you about Smoltz calling that game. He said in this really amazing moment, somebody said, is Otani a genius? And he goes, I think he is. And he said, but let me tell you what I think a genius is. He said, a genius is when you figure out your purpose and then stop at nothing to make sure you fulfill it.
Hmm.
And it was like so moving to kind of watch Smoltz, who there's no bitterness. Smoltz wasn't like a good major leaguer. John Smoltz is one of the best people ever to play the game.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's still a
yeah,
tough racket, as the
Well,
Cobra found out the hard way.
yeah.
I don't believe in pitch counts because if it's like your arm's like a rubber band. You can like go like this and all day long, nothing's going to happen. But once you go like this and stretch it out all the way, it's going to break. If you just pitch, not maximum effort, I think
But
you can pitch all day.
they don't. But
They
that's
don't do
not
it
the way
today.
they
I
pitch
know.
now. They don't
I
pitch
know.
like that.
I
But what
know.
I'm hoping though is like I'm hoping that Yamamoto and not pitching like that and and the courage of Dave Roberts, who is an amazingly courageous manager. I mean, in the sense that it's like I'm gonna let you pitch the game that you want to pitch. I'm not gonna pull you early. I'm not gonna do that, and let him pitch that game. That series was insane. I mean, it's like who's starting tonight? Well, the guy who hit so many home runs in the previous game. Wait, what? I mean, the whole thing was insane.
Yes. Well,
Who's going to pitch the last 2.5 innings? Oh, the guy that won the other two games. Wait, what? I
Yamamoto won
mean,
3 games in that
yeah,
series.
it's
does
amazing.
Kiki make the catch, by the way, if he doesn't get run into
We'll never know.
at the wall? I think he might be able to get there. It's still unbelievable that Roberts put
Podges, Pagas,
uh,
Podges.
yeah, puts him in the game right when he needs to. I mean, it's almost as good of an insertion as Dwayne
Yeah,
Wise. Remember the insertion of Dwayne Wise in the Mark Burley's perfect game?
Uh-huh.
He literally
Yeah.
puts him in and he makes the
Makes a
catch at the
catch.
wall that
Yeah.
saves it. And I mean, that was the best World Series. I felt like I was a kid again.
Yeah, it
It
was a great World Series. You know why it was a great World Series? Because you didn't know who's going to win until the final out of the
Oh, it
last
was
game.
insane.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was insane. And then it's like, and nobody's, and by the way, it's just awful. Realize that, only in this World Series would nobody be able to know who the catcher's name is for the
Right.
Dodgers.
Right.
It's crazy because he was the MVP too. He
Yeah.
called all those games, and when they needed home runs and big hits, he's the one that got there. It's nuts.
And
Sorry,
Jimmy,
guys, you told me it was a barbecue and baseball show, so I took your word for it.
absolutely, Jimmy. We are watching. I mean, this is stating the obvious, but every time you see Otani play, you have to think to yourself, this is the greatest player I am ever going to see. There is no doubt, whether put the PEDs aside, Bonds was probably the greatest hitter that I had ever seen. But now you put Otani in that
Oh,
mix. There is 4 MVPs. I mean, he could have had 5, and he's not done. I just, he wants to steal a lot of bases. He steals a lot of bases. He wants to hit home run. I mean, he's this year healthy pitching. I would not put it past him that he would be in the running for the Cy Young. You know,
yeah. I mean,
uh,
you may in our lifetime see somebody win the Cy Young and the MVP in the same year.
Yeah.
it could be, and it
Could
could be
be.
him.
And
Yeah.
it could be him. I got to tell you too. The other person I'm terrified of now is I don't know if you guys noticed towards the end there was a moment in the American League champion. Well, I'm sorry, the Yankees versus the divisional series, Yankees versus the Blue Jays, where I think it was where Judge turned around on a pitch that he never should have been able to turn around on. Was the home run that reignited that actually gave them a fighting chance to get back in series against, yeah, it was against the Blue Jays. And he turned around on it. I said, if he can figure out a way to turn around on high inside heat, we're going to be seeing two of the greatest baseball players we've ever seen in our lives,
Mhm.
both at the same time.
Yeah.
At the same time, this is, and like I said, and we don't know what Yamamoto's got in store yet. I mean,
Hmm.
we have lived so long, guys, to be young again because I think the rule changes were one of the greatest things to happen to baseball. Um, those rule changes to go to a baseball stadium, guys. And it was my wife. We're at Dodger Stadium, and she looks around the stadium and she goes, "Oh, look at all these kids!
Yeah.
Look at all these kids."
You think the pitch clock is doing that? Is getting the kids
I think
back
so too.
interested?
Not the interest; it's parents will bring them.
Hmm.
You
Right.
see, that's the
Okay.
thing. You're not on the I-5 at 11:45 at night anymore. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That you're able to lift the no beer rule in Cleveland after the seventh inning now because the games are going by so fast. It has been an amazing boom. Those rule changes have made the game more fun. the numbers, the year after the rule changes, the year of the rule changes, only one stadium saw a decline in attendance. Everybody else went through the roof.
Right.
Went through the
Well,
roof.
which rule? Okay, so there are various rule changes, the no throwing over more than twice, and um, but the ghost runner on second, or the
Mm.
Manfred man, or whatever you want to call it,
Mm.
on second in extra innings. What's your opinion on
Not
that?
crazy about it. I'm not
Okay.
crazy about it. I will say this though. Interestingly enough, despite that, we still had an 18 inning marathon with I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, because they didn't have the Manfred
yeah,
man in there.
yeah. But
That game wouldn't have gone 18 innings
yeah,
if it was, you know.
yeah, it's interesting to me though. We still have some long games, but I will say that I mean part of it was they just had to get the kids back, guys. They had to get those kids back, and making the game shorter makes a big difference. And
Yes.
and and baseball players by nature are cheaters. They are. I mean, and by the way, you're supposed to. I mean, it's almost a game. When I say cheating, guys, I don't mean using PEDs. I
Right.
don't mean spiking people. I don't mean the kind of stuff that Charlie Hustle got himself in a little trouble for. I'm talking about just looking for a little edge. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
It's a little edge. And the idea that they can, it's always about, Billy Martin figuring out the outside limit of the rules. And a lot of these guys were prolonging their careers, but also, slowing the games down. And at some point, I think that all athletes have to remember that there were 8, 9-year-old boys and girls in those stadiums who have to go to bed. And if the game is as long as it is, that's one thing. But if somebody is literally taking 45 seconds to a minute between each pitch, you don't need that.
Yeah, I don't need that. Absolutely.
You don't need that, gassed out arms, extra innings where nobody, where everybody's exhausted, and you're moving stuff.
Yep.
I'm not crazy about the man on second, though. I think you
No.
can win a game without that. I don't
Yeah.
think you need that.
Jimmy, thank you very much for being on Baseball and BBQ. Everybody, check out the show, Road Gang Radio. It's on Sirius, not on Sirius
That's
FM.
okay. It's everywhere. I
It's
can actually do
everywhere.
it. I can do it for you. It's real
Please.
simple. It's on YouTube. Okay, live. It is Facebook, YouTube, Odyssey, iHeart, Live 365, and every single platform where you get your podcast. All the places you can get baseball and barbecue, which is equally awesome. How about that?
Thank you very much, Jimmy Mack. Best of
Oh, and by the
success.
way, you can get us on Sirius XM. We're on the app.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Ah,
We're on the
Yes.
app. That was the great joke at the end. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, okay, fine, great. Guys, love you. I'll do it anytime, but you got plenty of great people to talk to. Great job in the last couple of weeks, by the way. Some of those guests were
thank you
chef's
very
kiss.
much.
Thank you very much, Jimmy
Thank you
Mack.
much.
This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, guys.